Hey everyone, Amy here, presenter and producer of the Eerie Excursion podcast, the podcast that takes a left turn into the shadows to hear haunted and creepy tales from around the UK, as told by local tour guides and experts. This week was a double feature because it was Halloween, so I hope you had a good Halloween, whether you were doing that in the more traditional Celtic sense or whether you were trick or treating, having parties, dressing up in costumes. I hope you had a good Halloween. Now, on Wednesday, we were in North Yorkshire in Whitby, which is the episode I'll talk about today. And then on Friday, I'll do an extra highlights video about Scarborough. So here's Whitby on the map. And my guide here was Dr. Crank from Whitby Walks, whose tours, by the way, you only need to turn up to. You don't necessarily have to book. They meet here, which is called the Whale Bones, which is opposite the Royal Hotel in Whitby. Now, all the information is on the website. As you can see, it's a really cool place to start a tour. Now, back to the episode. So this one is called The Home of Dracula. Now, obviously, I should point out that Bram Stoker is Irish, so I'm not trying to take anything away from them. British have done plenty of that over the history. But Stoker did stay in Whitby, and the Whitby chapters of the book are some of the most haunting of the book. And the town is really so vividly described that this recording this was my first trip to Whitby, and I felt like I'd been there because the way Bram Stoker describes it in the book is so accurate because he really was inspired by Whitby, hence the name. So there's obviously so much to say about Dracula. It's one of the biggest attractions to Whitby. They've got like a museum, and I believe over Halloween weekend they have a goth weekend last weekend because of this ties to Dracula and Whitby, and it's actually why it's one of possibly the only seaside town in the UK that runs sort of all year round. We When we recorded this episode, we actually went in July. So these have been recorded a few months ago, but we went in July and it was actually quite a grey day when we went to record. And I just remember thinking like this adds to the atmosphere. So it's definitely one of those towns that I would recommend any time of the year going. If you do go in winter, just beware, it was very windy even in July, so make sure you wrap up. Now back to the episode then. So one of my favorite spots in this episode, because like I said, I'm a gothic literature nerd, love Dracula, was this bench here in this picture. And I'll let Dr. Crank talk about its importance.
So this is where Bram Stoker used to sit when he was writing the initial notes for the play that was originally called The Undead. And this is where he sat when he was writing these notes. That's Tate Hill Beach. Okay. And in the book Dracula, that's the beach where Dracula's ship, the Demeter, runs aground on Tate Hill Sands right there. The crew are all dead. Dracula had killed them all one by one. Then he changes into a large black dog, runs up the 199 steps to hide in the graveyard, where people do say he still lurks to this very day.
So the views are so stunning from, as you can see from the video, and the Abbey, which is kind of in the background, it's not like, Westminster or York Minster, which are very well preserved abbeys. It is a ruined abbey, but it just looms over Whitby, and it's just this amazing abbey that sits on top of the cliff, and you can really see how Bram Stoker was just so inspired by it because it just feels like Dracula is watching you. Now, obviously, there's so much more to Dracula in the episode. As I say each week, these videos really are just a little snippet of the video of the episode. So we will move on because there is more to Whitby than just Dracula. And we'll move on to Cliff Street. So if I could kind of guide you, it's you're sitting on the Dracula bench, you come out of the bench, you turn back as you're going towards the Royal Hotel, and then you turn left down the road. And you just keep walking down this kind of windy road where you get to Cliff Street. Now, there's multiple haunted houses down here. And my favorite story that Dr. Crank tells in the episode is about this house. This is the Dutchman's house. And then I'll let Dr. Crank tell you about the story of this house.
He was an architect from Amsterdam, built many houses there. And he came to Whitby and he thought, if I build a house in the Dutch style, everyone's going to want one the same. I'll be a very rich man. Now, unfortunately, people of Whitby in those days were so poor, they couldn't afford a house of this style. In the end, he became completely bankrupt. He opened those double wooden doors up on the first floor. He tied a rope round his neck and stepped out. This was then turned into a dance school. But the people who went to the dance school always felt a bit of a tingle down the spine.
So as I said again, and I'll say it all the time, these are just some of the stories from the Whitby episode, and I'll let you listen to the full episode to hear more about it. I'll be back again on Friday for another highlights video from Scarborough this time. But I just wanted to remind you that even though Halloween is over, we are still in the darker half of the year. We've got dark nights, and I would argue it's still spooky season, even though we have modern lights and heating and things like that. It's the reason why ghost stories around Christmas time are quite a common tradition as well. So the series will be running right up to Christmas Eve. We've got so many more stories to cover before the year is out. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the eerie tales. And I will see you soon.